wanted to talk to you about stress and frustration and how that factors into starting a business for those of you who are just starting one, and how you can maybe get that under a little bit of under control if you're someone who has an existing business. And like all videos I do, whether you're listening to this on a podcast or just so you know, by the way, this is also going to be a podcast if you're a podcast listener. So go over and subscribe on iTunes, and it's going to be on YouTube. But all of this stuff comes from just personal experience, every video I've done. So if a lot of the stuff I've done has been useful for you, make sure you subscribe on different channels. I always welcome your comments and questions for other video ideas, because that's where a lot of my stuff comes from. It's from comments from previous videos. So if you're watching live, which you can do in the Empire Builders Facebook group, I appreciate you. But I went through this morning, a little bit earlier this morning, and just kind of jotted down 5 things that I think, things that bring me stress, and the things that I remember over, being in business 20 years that have brought me stress and anxieties. And it's also important to realize, I'm not a medical person, but how to know when you are stressed out? For some of you, it affects, health-wise. For me, a lot of it is in my shoulders. If you ever see me on a video doing this thing a lot with my shoulders, it's because there's subconsciously, it's probably stress going on, and we all have it. There's no way definitely to avoid it, but it's there, and I want to talk about it a little bit, because once you know about it and you're aware of it, you can kind of look out for the signs of it, and also you can do the right things in business to kind of prevent that from creeping up on you unconsciously. Because at least I've noticed for me, the stress is not something that just like kind of drops in on me. It creeps up a little bit, minute by minute, hour by hour kind of thing. But first, before we get started, I just realized you can probably barely hear me because my microphone's way over here. Didn't do that thing in the beginning. But also, look at this. This is kind of cool. Look at that. Look at that. I got to hang that later. But that is a piece of woodwork that Daniel Stevenson, local woodworking genius, did for me, and I picked up this weekend. So that'll pretty much on the wall back here once I find the chance to get a hammer and nail in here. It's one of those things that's going to take me 2 days to do 5 minutes worth of work. Okay, so let's talk about stress. To me, stress, not stress in life, not stress in your relationship, stress in business comes from when random things happen, when surprises happen, when things that cause you to question your level of income, or maybe the future of your income is threatened. When you have people that work for you, whether they be contractors, employees, and they kind of go rogue, or they disappear on you, or they do things that are completely unpredictable, or they just quit one day. I mean, the income, I think, is a big one, especially when you're first starting off and you're going out. When a lot of what's going on with your money is unpredictable and you don't know what's going to happen there, it freaks you out a little bit, and that'll cause you a lot of stress. Oftentimes technology will cause you stress. I take it for granted that I live, eat, and breathe technology. It's nothing for me to whip out a computer, set up a new operating system, install stuff, plug in USB, HDMI, do live streams, do microphones. I mean, this stuff is kind of stuff I do, in my sleep. But I realize that not everybody has that ability. It's just something that I kind of picked up over the years, the ability to just, live and eat technology. So it's just a no-brainer to me. But I know some people who freak out, a little bit. We get a lot of people in the world of marketing automation. So when we're setting up like email lists or showing people how to do live videos or run a podcast, we've had people just totally wig out because the idea of, buying a microphone and setting up a mixer and talking to the camera every day, that's a stress level for them, and they don't have the same stress as I do. So it's important for you to know that the stress levels I'm talking about are the ones that I've experienced. Yours may be different, but I think once you recognize your own stress levels, you'll basically learn how to control them. So the 5 I've got here, I'm gonna start off with number 1. To me, income is probably one of the top ones. That's the first one that came to mind when I was making my list this morning, is the not knowing your income and not having as multiple lines of income. So I like to give things in more of a solution-oriented fashion. So when you're starting off in business, or whether you've been in business, a day, a month, a year, or a decade, to me, it's important to have multiple lines of income as soon as possible. One is good to start off with, and more often than not, that's how people start a business. Is they start contracting for a company, and the company says, "Hey, I'll pay you this cool amount, which is going to be more than your salary," and they go into business, and you start riding high on that single income. That's exactly what happened to me. You start riding high on that single income. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about invoicing and all that crazy stuff. You've just got basically kind of like a job, except for you're not a W-2 person. It's like a 1099 person, but you're getting a paycheck, quote unquote, on a regular basis. Somewhat low stress. But the challenge is you have to realize that, as a contractor, you are responsible for going out and providing your value and your services to the world. Sorry, I've got an itch from my nose today. You're responsible for reaching as many people as possible and sharing your gift with them. And if you're going to start doing that, you're going to notice you're going to have to start hiring employees and contractors, and it's your job to keep your business low risk, and that means getting multiple lines of income as soon as possible. So if you're someone who is considering starting a business and you've got a really solid income offer, a couple of months in, I would suggest you start looking for another client as soon as possible. Now, you may have the challenge of, your current client or an existing client getting somewhat offended by that. And they need to realize, I don't know why somebody really would, makes no sense whatsoever, but anybody in business needs multiple lines of income. You need multiple clients. You need this to grow. You need this to grow your skills. You need this to increase your value. And you need to do this if you want to increase, your freedom and your income on the other end. Remember, Patrick's a capitalist. I like money, and I like freedom, and I like time. And so my goal with everything I do is to free myself up to do the fun stuff, out there, to go flying more, to travel more. And so in order for me to do that, I need to reduce my risk by having more income. So if you're someone who's just going into business, I could talk about this issue for a while. Do yourself a favor and get as many clients as you can as soon as possible. More than one is good. And, I like the number 10. No. Yeah, 10 is where I would really feel comfortable as a startup business in the startup phase. Hopefully someday you can get to the point where you have 50 or 100, and then you don't notice those bumps in income as much, and you don't notice the loss in income as much. So again, if you're someone that's starting off, please do yourself a favor, get multiple clients as soon as possible, and also try to get those clients on some kind of automatic payment plan. This is where the joy of, I love my Stripe account and I love my automatic billing system, where I'm just charging clients automatically. To me, it's not quite a passive income, but I don't have to worry about invoicing and going to the bank and cashing checks. The income side of my business is somewhat on automatic pilot for every new client that comes in. So you want multiple clients and you want that income to be on autopilot. That'll reduce your stress right there. And for those of you that are tuning in the middle, we're talking about ways to reduce your stress as a startup business. The second one I have here, I worked on this morning for you. Obviously, I beat the marketing horse dead some days, but it's again, it's important as a startup business to realize you need to be out there talking about what you do as soon as possible to other people. Word of mouth is a great way to get new business. However, when you are a startup, you do not have word of mouth. You have one client, and if you're lucky, they're talking about you, but you don't have a lot that you can make off of word of mouth. So you yourself have to get comfortable with talking about yourself, and that's going to reduce your stress when it comes to getting new clients in the door. Some people find marketing and sales and advertising stressful. I'll have to admit, I enjoy it, and it's our primary function, but even I find it a little bit stressful. However, I've noticed the result of that marketing, and the result of that is lower stress in my life, as in it helps me continuously having new clients come in the door. And I've noticed that, and it's one of those things also where you can't think of marketing and advertising as that thing you need, it's an ongoing thing. And if you look at it as an ongoing repeating activity, then it also becomes low stress to me. Rather than someone who says, I've got to market, and they wait several months, and they do a big marketing push, they may get some new clients, and then it just kind of dries up. You want to make marketing and advertising a regular part of your daily and weekly ritual, and you'll get better at it, and it will become more of a lower stress activity. So I would say number 2 is marketing and advertising on a regular basis will help reduce your stress in your business, because it'll kind of keep that funnel full. You're going to use a pipe drive, you're going to use a CRM like Pipedrive or like Entreport. So as you're talking to people and you're having conversations online and offline, you're kind of building that, that funnel on a weekly basis. And if you're not in the CRM adding somebody on a weekly basis, then you really need some serious marketing help. And of course, I'm going to say reach out to us, because that's what we do. But you want to have a CRM where you're constantly bringing new people in the door, and that will really make your marketing and your advertising low stress. Also, is keeping that stuff inside of a CRM. Number 3 here, I'm a big fan of, I don't know if you can tell us or not, is using technology to reduce stress. I get stressed out when I see a lot of paper on my desk. So I do whatever I can. I mean, as you can see, I've got some right here. I've got some up here. You can't see it, but whenever I see a messy desk, it stresses me out. So I have made the commitment to be as paper-free as possible. And whenever I have a kind of piece of paper business, mailing I get, I scan that as soon as possible. I get that into Dropbox or iCloud. I do all of my invoicing online. I do all my credit card payments online. I do everything I can to reduce the paper flow in my life, because paper just stresses me out. Not only that, if I have a piece of paper on my desk, the minute I walk out the door, I don't have access to that piece of paper anymore. And if I'm in the backwoods of Arkansas and I've got a business question, I can't get access to that. Or if I'm visiting a client in Naples, Florida, and they want access to a piece of paper that's in my office, I don't have access to that. So I decided a while back to take advantage of technology and go paper-free as soon as possible. It reduces the chance of me losing things. It reduces the chance of things getting destroyed. I assume that there's going to be a fire in my house someday and everything's going to get burnt to the ground. I'm very happy knowing that all of my legal documents are tied up in Dropbox or iCloud someplace. So that will not be a problem. The fact that all my accounting and my invoicing, my payroll, all that stuff is just online. I'm actually trying to get to the point where I can run my business entirely from an iPad. That is a goal of mine, an iPad or an iPhone even. That way, I don't have to travel with a laptop. I like my laptop. I like showing it off, but I would much rather travel around the world and just control things with an iPad. And the iPads are getting to that point where they're kind of business replacements, laptop replacements. We got pencils now and keyboards, and you can use a mouse now on an iPad. So that is my goal, to take 100% advantage of technology and run my business from an iPad. So that's what I'm working on. I want you to work on that also. But learn how to use more and more technology in your business to basically just take your stuff with you. And actually that gets into my 4th point here about making yourself location independent. What else was I going to talk about when it came to taking advantage of technology? There was something right there in the back of my head. Gosh darn it. Well, if it comes back, I'll talk about it. But number 4 on my list here is making yourself location independent. I relish the fact that because I am mainly a digital business, and because I've gone out of my way to make sure I have very little paperwork in my business, it's very easy for me to be mobile. So I can very easily be one of those coffee shop people. I can very easily be someone who works from a car, who works from a plane, who works from a truck stop, who works from a boat, as long as there's an internet connection. And so, for example, in the home office recently, we had an internet blip about, 30 minutes ago. And I give my little internet blips about, 10 or 15 minutes that I can be without internet access. And then I throw everything in the tech backpack and I get out the door and I head to the nearest coffee shop that I can find and get on their internet as soon as possible. And I can do that with, really without missing a beat. And I really like that. So try to become a type of business that is fairly location independent. That's easier to do. Also, the higher you move up in the food chain. Now, my business is a service-based business, and it's based on the knowledge that I do for people. So it's easier for me. If you're someone who works in steel, or you manufacture cars, or you're into woodworking, it's definitely not as easy. If you're a woodworker, you can't just up and go to your friend's house across the street and start working on things. So that's something that's not for all kinds of businesses, but I would encourage you to, between points 3 and 4 here, using technology and making yourself location independent, is to get rid of as much paper, as many physical items in your business as possible. Probably the other thing I would say that's really cool about technology is the ability to use dashboards, which is something I'm using more and more. And I'll do a specific episode on that at some point. But for example, this morning, I was basically setting up a new piece of this is what I was going to talk about. It just slipped into my head. I know a lot of people are not Apple fans, but I'm going to tell you, committing to the Apple infrastructure has been one of the best things I've ever done in my business and personal life. It's expensive, which is why I buy a lot of stuff refurbished. But, I decided a while back to go iMac, which you can't see. It's right here off camera. iMac, iPhone, watch, laptop, iPad. What Apple has done, which is amazing, and they're very proud of it, is Apple has basically made it so all of your stuff works together, and it works together well. And I'm going to give you an example of one piece right here. An Apple thing I was working on earlier, and I bet you already showed up on my watch right here. Oh, doggone it, it hasn't. But I was working, here it is right here. So it's not there. I was working on a business dashboard for my phone right here because I want to be able to see 4 or 5 KPIs in my business every single morning or throughout the day and know I'm making progress on certain things. It's through an app called Numerics on my phone. Because it runs in the Apple infrastructure, all of that setup work I did on the phone is going to be pushed to my watch. So my KPIs will be right here on my watch, and then they will be over here on the iPad in my backpack. So whenever you install an app on one of your devices, it installs on all of your devices, the data is shared. So if for some reason my iPhone battery dies, I can seamlessly hop over to the iPad. The texting, the email, all the different features, all the different productivity things we need in our lives work seamlessly between Apple world. So, that's one of the 1,000 reasons I can give you as to why I run around in Apple circles. I become an Apple fanboy, is the fact that everything is seamless. It works together. It makes me more productive, and it lets me live in more of a paper-free world. So if you're someone who has 1 or 2 Apple devices, consider committing to the entire Apple infrastructure, just between stuff like iCloud and the calendar stuff and the contacts and the email and the shared notes. I use the Notes app over here. As a matter of fact, that's where my notes are right now. As a matter of fact, that would be interesting. I just worked on my notes for the show where I'm talking to you right here, but I know right now I could pick up my laptop or my iPad or my iPhone, and those notes I worked on my computer are going to be right there. I mean, yeah, some other platforms have that to a point, but it's just kind of a free feature you get in Apple world where all that stuff works seamlessly together and lets me be location independent and lets me use technology more. So that was the point right there that slipped out of my head. Okay. And last one here, because we've gone through 5 now. So we've talked about getting multiple lines of income, the importance of marketing as soon as you start up your business, which I did not do. I made that mistake. Using technology and making yourself location independent as much as possible. And the last thing I would talk about is somewhat business related, but it's just life, kind of good life advice that will affect your business attitude and lower your stress, is to stop watching what the news is telling you about how business is going. I know a lot of you that we have that watch my content or subscribed on iTunes or subscribed on YouTube. We have very similar attitudes when it comes to how much we pay attention to the news. Do we watch the news all the time? Do we watch the news every now and then? But one of the parts of the news that'll stress you out if you're not careful is when the news talks about business predictions and how many businesses are going out of businesses and how it's such a bad time to start a business and what are the risks you face as a business and specifically for business news items. When you start watching the news, it'll stress you out and you'll start to question sometimes your ability to run a business, your ability to keep a business open in an era, for example, when we have the coronavirus. I mean, there are a lot of businesses going out of business in 2020 as a result of the coronavirus. Now, my business has flourished. I have no complaints at all. But part of that I think is also I don't pay attention to the part of the news that just tells me how bad business is. So basically I choose to be willfully ignorant when it comes to watching bad business news. I think a lot of that stuff comes up from like MSNBC or CNBC. But on a daily basis, I couldn't tell you, I do check in on the market every now and then, but I couldn't tell you what the market's doing on a daily basis, which is often a predictor of how good or bad news is. Like I said, I do watch the market maybe once a week because we do have some light investments now. But just be careful about paying attention to any kind of business news because oftentimes like a lot of things, the things that people really like to talk about in the world of business news are the negative things, and those negative things will affect your mood. They will make you apprehensive to do some of these other things I talked about. They'll make you apprehensive to invest some money in marketing. I mean, if you keep watching the news for a week and it keeps telling you about how the Dow and the S&P are heading downward and it's a bad week for business, you're going to be apprehensive about some of those first 3 or 4 things I talked about. And you really have to control, and this is just a general life rule, you really have to control the things that come into your head because they will affect your mood and they will affect your decision making when it comes to everything else. So really limit the amount of business news you expose yourself to every single week, and it will reduce your stress. Because remember, all we're talking about today are the 5 really simple things that I have learned that I can do to reduce stress. Now, if you've got some of your own tips or things that you do, please drop them in the comments below. If you're watching this later, because you're watching it on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast on iTunes, just leave me a comment and I'll gladly reply to that. So again, kind of as a quick recap to how to reduce your stress when it comes to running a business. Getting multiple lines of income as soon as possible, especially for those of you who start up and you get that one big client and you're riding high on that cash flow. As soon as you get done riding high on that cash flow a month or 2 in, please get a second client ASAP. And you're going to do that by hitting up number 2 to get marketing as soon as possible, as soon as you start up your business. Take advantage of all the technology you can. And like I said, I'm also an Apple fanboy. And once you commit to the Apple world, technology makes you more productive. That's probably the biggest takeaway from using technology in business is the right technology will make you more productive. It'll help you get things done faster and with fewer errors. So, of course, make sure you use technology as much as possible. And that goes in line with number 4, making sure to make yourself location independent. And of course, please stop watching business news. I mean, yeah, maybe catch up with it once a week or once a day, but don't be that kind of person who has the business news up all the time when you're working. For example, I could have, a TV up here and watch business news continually, but that would stress me out. It would stress me out because it's a constant feed of data that I don't need. And it would stress me out because it would start making me question my business decisions based on things I have no control over and things that really don't affect me. I mean, that's how data works. Sometimes the more data you get is not necessarily better for you. It's worse for you, and it does not help your cause at all. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Please subscribe on iTunes. Leave a rating. Those ratings help me determine whether or not we're doing a good job and whether or not the content is useful for you. And also comment below with some other things you'd like to see me talk about on future shows. I'm actually trying to get out a show daily for you guys. And so your ideas for content, questions, business challenges you're having, personal challenges you're having, All that stuff counts as valid topics for future shows. And I would love to help you out. So don't forget to subscribe everywhere. Get on the email list. Heck, matter of fact, I forgot to even put up the text number. If you want to text in and get on our text list, where's that at? Right there. There we go. Text me there and let me know you want on the SMS text list, and I'll get you added there also. 405-217-4752. We'll talk to you soon.